This is the Speak For Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I am your host, Jason McIntyre. Christine Leahy filling in. We got a little NBA, a little NFL, and we're going to make fun of Lonzo Ball's $500 sneakers. Let's go! Whitlock believes that DeMar DeRozan and the Raptors have waved the white flag to LeBron, and the Cavs will have the NBA Finals in Cleveland. Fox Sports Radio host Doug Gottlieb predicts the Spurs dynasty is over and needs Chris Paul to save them. Hey, I wrote that 2 weeks ago. Chris Paul to the Spurs, make it happen! Former Super Bowl champ Eric Davis thinks there's just too much bad tape on Colin Kaepernick to get a job in the NFL. Fox Sports NBA analyst Chris Broussard tells you why the Celtics are not getting Jimmy Butler or Blake Griffin, and they should build around, wait for it, Isaiah Thomas. Broussard, gotta love him. Build around a 5'9" point guard. When is the last time that's happened? Finally, we talk about the Clippers, and Christine Leahy calls Doc Rivers the best salesman in the league, but the worst buyer as a GM. Ready for Speak For Yourself? Take it away, Whitlock.
No Colin Cowherd. He's in Hawaii. My favorite co-host is here, Christine Leahy from the Herd.
She's the best.
I'm so excited.
Hopefully there are no TVs in Hawaii.
Yeah. We're joined by Chris Broussard, our Fox NBA analyst, and Fox Sports Radio host Doug Gottlieb. Someone replace Colin and make some Bill Belichick analogy out of nowhere today, please. But let's start in San Antonio, where the Spurs bounced back from a Game 1 blowout, dominating Houston to even their series at 1-1, but it wasn't all good news for the Spurs, as Tony Parker had to be carried off the court after landing awkwardly on his right leg. The Spurs announced today that Parker will miss the remainder of the playoffs with a ruptured left quad. But Spurs fans have some reason to remain hopeful. The team has had a pretty similar record and stats when Parker has been absent over the last couple of years. All right, I think the Spurs are done. I really do. I think despite having played well without Tony Parker, I just can't. I like this Rockets team. I like their three-point shooting. I just can't see them losing someone like Tony Parker. And LaMarcus Aldridge continues to struggle. I can't see them winning this series.
Well, you're already beating us with the Colin Cowherd analogies and predictions, because he had written them off completely. He said the Spurs legacy was completely over. And I disagree with you, actually. I think sometimes you see a team when their star player goes down, the team rallies, and it's something that they're just doing in the moment in that night. But I do think that this is something that's sustainable. Patty Mills is averaging the most minutes that he has in his entire career, which tells me they're transitioning more towards him anyway. And he's going to be a free agent this summer, so he has every incentive to play his butt off this year.
He's only so good, though. I mean, playing his butt off is only so good. He's not Tony Parker, but I'm with you.
34-year-old Tony Parker?
I'm with you. They are not done. I give them a chance against the Rockets. Now, I give them no chance against the Warriors. I didn't give them any chance with Tony Parker anyway. So I don't think they're done, and I don't think the end of this Spurs dynasty, if you will, is over either. Greg Popovich, here's your Bill Belichick analogy. He is the Bill Belichick of the NBA, and they are the Patriots of the NBA. A lot of people in the league thought with Tim Duncan retiring, not that he was the old Duncan, but just his voice, his presence, the way he talked on defense, that they wouldn't be nearly as good as they've been without him. Now they got Kawhi Leonard to build around. Aldridge is falling off, but he did have 15 and 8 last night. I still think they're going to be a team to be reckoned with going forward.
May 4th, 2017. Here lies the San Antonio Spurs.
I thought
you just disregarded everything I just said.
No, they're done. I mean, look, there is one thing that can resuscitate the run. I wouldn't call it a dynasty because they haven't won back-to-back titles. There is one thing, and we'll get to that in a second. Let's start without Tony Parker. They're not beating the Rockets. They were going to struggle with the Rockets when they went to Houston with Tony Parker. And it's like you said about Patty Mills. I love Patty Mills. Like, I was the idiot out of college who thought he had a chance to be better than Steph Curry, okay? But the more you see him, the more you realize that the idea of prorating stats doesn't work. You're like, oh, if Patty Mills played 40 minutes, he would no. The more he plays, the more he has to facilitate. He's not great at that. He gets lost at times defensively. His shot selection is not good. Tony Parker is a Hall of Fame player. And a Hall of Fame point guard goes down in the middle of a tough, hard-fought series, especially early on when the Rockets have a chance to adjust to your personnel. I think they're done. Now, the only thing that can resuscitate this run after this year is getting Chris Paul because they could not possibly be happy with LaMarcus Aldridge.
I like that.
Like
if I'm Chris
an
Paul,
old point guard for another old
if
point
Chris
guard?
Paul wants to really compete for a championship, he'll look seriously at that. Forget if you can get 4 years max with the Spurs versus 5 years max with the Clippers. Take the Spurs and try to win a ring.
Wait, so Tony Parker's 34, but he seems a lot older.
Well,
than
he's
34,
playing in the
doesn't he?
league since he was 19.
Right, but he has the lowest minutes, lowest points per game since he was a rookie.
Yeah.
He's on a downswing, so I don't think
without
he's
question.
really that big of an important piece.
No, it's
Right.
They can beat the Rockets.
15-4 this year without Tony Parker.
but they-
I think over the last 2 years,
23-6.
23
You're saying it's more of that championship experience that they're going to
No, they've been waiting for the playoff, much like everybody in the NBA. I mean, like Kawhi Leonard didn't play every game this year. They were 7-1 right without Kawhi Leonard. So they're a good team, but this is a higher level of competition. Everybody's been loading up for the playoffs, and like he was as big a difference as anybody last night, scoring 18 points.
to Cleveland, where LeBron James and the Cavs embarrassed the Raptors last night to take a 2-0 series lead. After the game, even the Raptors players were admitting there was nothing they could do to slow down LeBron James.
You find somebody who stopped LeBron, you know, in these moments, and you know, I give you $100, you know, but it's on us to be able to take out all the other key players and not let them get going, and for us to, you know, take advantage of that.
All right, so DeRozan has waved the white flag. They have no answer for LeBron James. We're afraid of LeBron James, and there's nothing we could do. He's waved the white flag. Will this give this easy path in the East? Will this give LeBron James and the Cavaliers a false sense of confidence that could blow up in their face when they move to the NBA Finals?
No. False sense of confidence is something that I would apply to an inexperienced team, and the Cavs have shown that they can win this thing. They've also proven to us that they can flip the switch whenever they need to. The only thing that I do get worried about is, like, in boxing, if you're going up against weak sparring partners, you're not going to be able to perform to your, best ability. That could be something towards the finals if they just haven't gotten that level of competition. Yeah. But I don't think that it will be because they have a false sense of confidence.
For some reason, everybody's raving about what LeBron James is doing, as if he doesn't always do this. All right, they won 6 straight games in the East. You think LeBron is going, wow, we're really playing well? He's done this before. Last year, they won their first 8 games. 2009, I covered them. They won their first 8 games. Then they lost to Orlando in the conference finals. So he understands this is nothing, beating the Pacers, beating the Raptors. Then when they beat the Celtics or Wizards, whoever comes out, they know that the Western Conference opponent, whoever it is going to be light years ahead of whoever they face in the East.
Can we just explain to, like, America, like, there's a reason we don't respect the Toronto Raptors. They were always like, hey, we're young, we're up and coming.
Is this about the dinosaur? Is that what you're going?
No, I just, like, I get tired of franchise fans claiming for respect when even the players don't think they have a chance to win, right? Like, and he was clowning them, like spinning the ball twice and then shooting a jump shot and throwing the ball at the backboard, the taking a sip of the beer thing. Like, they're trying to find ways to entertain themselves. Could it be a false sense of confidence? I don't think so, because I don't actually think they're all that confident. I think they're fully respectful of the Warriors. That's why I think they're going to take care of business a lot sooner this year than they did last year when they messed around with the Raptors in Toronto and lost games, what, 3 and 4? Yeah, 3 and 4. I think they're actually, they know they're really good, but they're not as good as they should be. And the way to put their best foot forward is to be rested, because when they're rested, that's when you get peak LeBron.
I like cliches. They speak a lot of truth. If iron sharpens iron, when have the Cavaliers faced any iron this year?
Did they face any iron last year? The finals.
The finals. And they got down 3-1.
It sharpened eventually.
Iron sharpening iron is a saying. I don't think it's a cliche. I think it's a really good saying.
It's a biblical verse. You've been in your Bible. I like that.
I think it's a really good one. I get the idea that you're battle tested. On the other hand, I don't actually think battle-tested works in the NBA because I think that's like body blows. I think that's what actually beat the Golden State Warriors last year, was the attrition of the run to get to the finals.
Oh, no.
Draymond
Green cost them last year.
No, that too, but Steph Curry was not the normal Steph Curry. Was the knee or going for the MVP, playing late in games that he hadn't the year before. I actually think that's a bad idea. I think getting this thing over with quick, getting rested, they know how to crank it up at the right moment. They're not a perfect team, nor do any of us think they're a perfect team, but their strongest likelihood of success is faux before they get to the finals.
If you're worried about body blows, something you said does concern me. The fact that they're clowning around, taking the beer away, spinning the ball, that kind of immaturity puts a target on their backs. And when do we see chippiness? Most in games when it starts to get a blowout and one team feels like they're not being respected. I think that the Cavs are putting.
But you don't see that from Toronto. That's like the most disappointing thing.
But if once you move on to Boston,
Boston, they're going to try and fight them, or Boston will try and fight them, or the Wizards will try and fight them. But that's actually where I knew we'd get a series from San Antonio. Like, I still think San Antonio, if they get down 2-1, 3-1, they're going to try, just like 2007 with the Suns and the Spurs, they're going to try and start a fight, try to get under their skin, try to be physical. That's like the most disappointing thing from the Raptors. Everybody knows in hoop, if you can't play, you better start a fight or do something to get them out of the rhythm. The Raptors have offered no resistance at all.
And it's not like the Cavs are going to get to the finals and be shocked at how good the Warriors are, or whoever comes out of the West. They know these teams. They played them before, so they won't. I'd rather have the easy road than the harder path as long as I get to the finals.
Cotton sharpens iron.
No, it doesn't. All right, welcome back. Jason Whitlock, Christine Leahy. We're joined by two Super Bowl champions, Eric Davis and James Jones. Let's move to Colin Kaepernick. USA Today says that it's, quote, a bad sign for the NFL that Kaepernick is out of work because his national anthem protest pales in comparison to the off-field issues of some of last week's notable draft picks. Says the paper, quote, what does it say about the NFL and about us when at least a half dozen men who have been accused of physical or sexual assault have been welcomed into the NFL over the past week, while Colin Kaepernick still has not? Christine Brennan, who is a friend of mine, wrote this piece for USA Today, and this is the epitome of false equivalency. She can be upset about the players being welcomed into the NFL that have this baggage. It has nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick being out of the league. Colin Kaepernick is no good. He's a backup quarterback. He's not someone that teams think can help them win a Super Bowl. He's not someone teams think of as a starter. These guys that are getting drafted with this baggage are guys teams are hopeful of can be starters and can help them win games. It's two separate issues. Be upset if you want to about the players being welcomed into the league. There's no reason to drag Colin Kaepernick into it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, domestic violence is a distraction, but they let those guys in. I don't agree with it, but because they think that they have a chance to give their team more wins. Right now, they don't think that Colin Kaepernick gives the team the best chance to win, which is the same. Like, Jay Cutler isn't even on a team, and I would argue that he's a better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick.
I have to agree with you guys on this one. I really do. I think Cap can make a team. I think Cap should be given an opportunity, but is it a bad look on the league that he's not given this opportunity? If your play doesn't outweigh your issues, the league has always been that way. Whenever they decide, and I should tell young players all the time, that they can decide to get rid of you whenever they want to. Absolutely. And so all you can do is not justify it by putting something on film that you don't like. Colin has too much on film that teams can hold against him. You couple it with the distractions of his protests. That's what teams are worried about. And you're right, it's not. They're not looking at him as a starter anymore. And you're not going to do it for a backup.
There's 100 million quarterbacks in the National Football League, starters, backups, and Kaepernick is a backup in this league, and he's better than half of them.
Yeah.
But what he did last year with the protests and all that, when you talk about an organization giving him a chance, I do think they're hanging that over his head and not signing him, because he can be a solid backup for a team and get in there and maybe win you a couple games. And he's better than half of the backups that's in the league. But what he did last year, protesting that and all that, I think that teams look at that when they start talking contract-wise with Kaepernick, and I think that's why they're staying away from him. And to me, that's unfair, and to me, that is sending the wrong message, because these guys are putting their hands on women, and yeah, they're coming out of college, they haven't been in the league yet, but you're drafting them at in a high round. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're saying, hey, you're in domestic violence, you guys can't get drafted. You know, you maybe could get picked up free agent or whatnot, but you can't get drafted. Then that's kind of sending a message penalizing these players. But these guys are getting drafted high, and I believe that a guy that did something that he believed in is not getting an opportunity because of that.
You make the most interesting point that I've heard on this issue as it relates to domestic violence. If someone comes into the league with that baggage, okay, we're going to exclude you from the draft. You have to come in as an undrafted free agent into the league. That's a really...
See, I don't even think you do that. I think you bring a guy in the program. It's just like if a guy fails a drug test, you don't say, well, once you get into the league, if you fail a test, now I'm going to put you in the program. I think if these guys are going to come into the league, you put them under the same scrutiny that you would put a current player under. And that's the way I think you have it.
My thing is like if they're in the league,
it costs them more money.
If they're in the league and you get involved in domestic violence, they're going to suspend you for the year. So it's kind of like if you're in college and you're trying to make it to the NFL and you're that top prospect, then you should be suspended for the year too, and you miss out on all that money.
I don't want them even allowed into the league to begin with. If you have an issue before you're going into the draft, you have to enter a program, completely finish it, then you can be drafted. Then you can try out to be on a team.
That's not going to happen.
No.
I'm just saying. I hear what you're saying, but that's just simply not going to happen.
It just sends a terrible message. And then we have these kind of debates about Colin Kaepernick, too. Unrelated.
I think there's a compromise here, though. What James is talking about, I think, is fascinating because if you have to enter the league as an undrafted free agent, enter into the program that they have set up for domestic violence, that's a pretty strong deterrent. That's going to cost you a lot of money. Entering the league as an undrafted guy, it's a lot easier for them to get rid of you. You haven't cost them a draft pick. That's
and it's going to send a message to the college kids that we're not accepting that.
It's better than the practice they have now.
Yeah. Bringing Colin Kaepernick into this, though, is cheap and lazy and not the appropriate thing to do. All right, welcome back. Jason Whitlock, Christine Leahy. We're joined once again by Chris Broussard. And we're now joined by former NBA All-Star Cedric Ceballos. So, Cedric, welcome. It's time for the Lexus Command Performance. So let's go to Boston, where Isaiah Thomas put on a show Tuesday night, dropping 53 on the Wizards. Thomas has blossomed into a star this season and is eligible for a contract extension this summer, but he's only 5'9", and he is already on his third team in just 6 seasons, raising questions about whether he's really the guy Boston wants to build their future around. I have really struggled with putting Isaiah Thomas in proper perspective. Because it is his third team and because he's so small, it's hard for me to see him as this superstar player and maybe even a smaller version of Steph Curry. I just don't know when I've seen someone blossom into a superstar at age 28 on his third team, and certainly not at his size. It's hard for me to know what to do with him, but I think the guy's a superstar, and I would build around him.
I mean, what's wrong with the little guys? I happen to be most impressed with the guys who are like 5'9", 5'10". Their dunks look way cooler. They look awesome out on the floor. I love it when a little guy does this kind of thing.
You build a championship around him.
Exactly. That's the question. Would you build a team around him?
And here's my answer. Look at what their options are, okay? They can, in the draft, maybe they can get a rookie point guard. I don't know about you, but I would not put a rookie point guard as the leader of my team. That's a lot of pressure to take on because the ball goes through your point guard. Some of the other options they have, Jimmy Butler, my sources tell me, is not going to happen. He's not going to go to the Celtics. Paul George, he wants the Lakers. Blake Griffin, I think that ship has sailed for the Celtics, and he's really injury prone. And you can get Gordon Hayward. You can have both. Why can't you have Isaiah Thomas and Gordon Hayward? So I don't see that they have a better alternative.
Well, I think he's a superstar, and I think you've got to take off that Sacramento and Phoenix Suns thing. The programs didn't want to win. They just wanted to get through a couple of things. 3-point guards in Phoenix. Now is a situation where he's in a winning program, winning attitude. Danny Ainge has got him taken care of. If you keep a great pick-and-roll guy who can pick and pop, then you build a franchise around that. If Al's going to stay there, sign him up. You get another guy who can spread the offense with 3-point shooting, then you got a key situation. But other than that, I think he's ready to be made for it.
This was an Allen Iverson-type season that he's having. In fact, he was more efficient than what Iverson was in his career. Look, he's been better. I like John Wall better, but he's been better than John Wall this year. I like Paul George better, but he's been better. Jimmy Butler, he's been better. He's arguably been the second best player in the East. If it was DeMar, I think he can. I think he can for the next 3-4 years play close to this level.
Yeah, I love the extension, the 4-year extension, maybe 135. That's good for him. If Danny wants to play it safe, that's a good opportunity for him to take this point guard to another level.
Well, let's keep in mind, the Celtics are supposed to still be very much so in the beginning of their rebuilding process, and they're the #1 seed in the East.
I just have, and I know this, the NBA is different. When you played, it was more physically taxing. And so when Isaiah went to the hole, he would pay a stronger price for going to the hole. And that's like what caught up with Allen Iverson eventually, is like he took a beating. And maybe the league is so finessed and so built around the three-point arc that we all have to open our minds to the fact that maybe a 5'9" guy can carry a franchise.
But we play less basketball in my era. Isaiah would finish the season, whether a championship or not, and stop playing 1 to maybe, months at a time. Now they go from there. They go to USA basketball. They got the summer league. They go all kind of different training situations. So they playing more. That's why these players are getting beat up more. If they don't do what LeBron and Kobe has done over their careers and take care of their bodies, this is what happens when you play multiple minutes and get beat up that way.
Look, we're right to be skeptical because no player this size or an inch tall or 5'10" or under has led a team to a championship. Calvin Murphy will be the best example. He got to the finals, but he had Moses Malone, who was the best player on that team. I'm not saying Isaiah is going to lead you to a championship, but this is entertainment too. And with this guy, the mental toughness he's shown, the fans now love him because of what he's gone through with his sister and his family. He's shown physical toughness, losing his teeth. And even if he just has you as a contender for the next 4 years, that's worth it. So I definitely would pay him the money.
And he's a Celtic. He plays hard. He plays aggressive. He gets hurt. He gets back up. That has been the MO of Celtics who won championships before.
And if you look at all the teammates, it's very apparent how much they love and respect him and want to play for him. And that's not something that you can replace easily.
All right, welcome back. Jason Whitlock, Christine Leahy. We're joined by Doug Gottlieb and Cedric Ceballos. Let's return to the NBA and the Clippers, whose season came to an end this week after yet another early playoff exit. The future of the team is now up in the air, but Doc Rivers thinks the big three of Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan should be kept intact, saying, quote, they deserve a chance to win. Maybe they do, but I think the bigger question is, does Doc Rivers deserve another chance? In this quote, he talked about they have built this legacy. And I was like, what legacy? Doc Rivers is talking about Doc Rivers.
Yes.
And Doc Rivers is talking about he deserves another chance. He's hiding behind the big three. I don't think Doc Rivers deserves another chance.
He is the NBA's best salesman and worst buyer. And I think it was
Wow,
Bill Parcells.
That's a great one.
Thank you. He's had his chances, right, over and over and over. And I would give him another chance if he was just the coach. I would not give him another chance as coach and GM. And it was Bill Parcells who said, if they want you to cook, you should at least be able to choose your groceries. And now he's talking about how he needs a two-way wing player. Well, hey, guess what? You're the guy who can go get the two-way wing player, and you haven't done it. You're not putting together the right ingredients, and the food sucks.
Well, Doc is a championship. He's a championship coach, but he's a championship coach because of one individual, and that's Kevin Garnett. He is that coach off the floor. Rondo as well, you can put him in that category. It's nobody on the Clippers that will get in the face of their best player or second best player and say, you're not doing what you're supposed to be, you need to be doing this. No, he won't.
Chris Paul gets in
No, he
everyone's
won't.
face.
Just because he yells at DeAndre Jordan doesn't mean he will go to Blake. He picks his words carefully when he comes to Blake. They have a little beef going back 2 or 3 years. He picks his words carefully going to Blake. He doesn't grab his jersey and say, big fella, I need 20 boards tonight. I need 40 points tonight. He doesn't do that. So in this situation, Doc is actually right. I thought Doc would just tap out and say, let me tap out, go chill on the beach for a little while, and then start over in another program.
I think you bring him back, but I'm with Christine. I don't bring him back as president. I bring him back as coach. And I bring him back on a short-term deal. And look,
what great coaching has he done recently?
Well, look, you're comparing it to the scale of every other team. But what he's done is not all that dissimilar to what Marvin Lewis has done with the Cincinnati Bengals. Historically bad franchise. They're the worst franchise in the history of pro sports over the life of the...
Don't compare them to football. It's easier to fix basketball problems than football problems. He's not Marvin Lewis. Continue.
The parallel, though, between that and Marvin Lewis, though, is it's really hard to completely change a culture. He hasn't been great, but I think you get motivated by being demoted in terms of losing the job title. You get motivated by a short-term deal. You probably get motivated by, I'm guessing he's openly opining to get this job back because he might not have that cush job in Orlando that
Let me tell you something about Doc Rivers and about people that delude themselves. I delude myself. I think I look like better than Denzel Washington. That's why I haven't addressed my weight problem the way that I should have. Doc Rivers is deluded. He's not a great coach anymore. This legacy, the big three, the only way to snap him out of that is with a pink slip across the board.
Hold on.
And he's not going to be okay with that. And you're onto something interesting too with the Blake Griffin and DeAndre. I know that those guys have asked Doc to help them out with the situation regarding Chris Paul, and Doc won't do it. He won't say anything to Chris, and therefore he's got the rest of he's got the rest of the team resenting not only Chris but Doc. You know, Doc's not taking the locker room over, and as a coach, I think.
Want him to remain
hold on, I think that is where Doc excels most as a coach: late game plays and getting the veterans to work with each other and you know be more of a player's coach. And he's failing even in that. So maybe take away the GM stuff. Just focus on what you're
But it's not Blake's fault. It's not Blake. It's not Blake at all when it comes to Doc. And that's the situation. You have to pick. You guys got to figure out what superstar is the superstar here. And I think it's Blake. I said earlier, when these two walk in the arena, the place goes crazy for Blake. They just acknowledge Chris Paul.
You're blaming Chris Paul now?
No, I'm not blaming Chris Paul. I'm saying either one of them has to bow down to say, okay, this is our star of our team. But when it comes down to the clutch, it's always, this is me. I'm going to take it over. When you have the unbelievable player in Blake, whether he comes through or not, we got to go through Blake. And that does not happen. And Chris, and like I said before, Chris needs to go Blake. If you're the superstar that you say you are, the new space shine, this, that, and the other, go
Doc
for it.
Doc needs to be fired.
He needs to be fired as president. The GM has killed it. You can't win a championship with JJ as your two. Okay, he can't get his own shot, and he's not good enough defensively. And then you couple it with not having a journeyman as your starting small forward. The roster is clear.
You know what?
I have to move on.
You can find
I've got to move on. We've all agreed Doc Rivers needs to be fired as head coach.
This is the Speak for Yourself podcast featuring the best of Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock. I'm your host, Jason McIntyre. Hey guys, special programming note, we are off tomorrow. So make sure to enjoy the weekend. You know where to find all our podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Oh, and also this weekend, whatever you do, do not go and waste $120 on Lonzo Ball slippers. Seriously, he's selling flip-flops for $120. That's worse than spending $495 on sneakers. I can't imagine anybody who's going to buy those sneakers. They're a Kobe knockoffs. It's an embarrassment. I can't believe anybody would spend $500 of their hard-earned dollars on basketball sneakers. That's embarrassing. And if you do it, go ahead and post it on social media and tag SFY because I double dog dare you. I don't think anybody buys those sneakers. Have a good weekend.